What it means when you attract emotionally unavailable men. Why are you always attracted to men who can't give themselves emotionally? Why, even though you promise yourself that this time will be different? Do you find yourself again in a relationship where you feel alone, invisible, fighting for crumbs of affection? This is no coincidence. According to Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, there is a hidden pattern in your psyche that magnetizes these experiences over and over again. Something inside you is sending out a silent signal, attracting exactly the kind of man who confirms your deepest wounds. This video will reveal the psychological truth behind this painful cycle. You will find that this attraction is not a curse, but rather an urgent invitation from your soul to heal neglected parts of yourself. Jung believed that nothing happens by chance in our emotional lives. Each person we attract is a mirror, reflecting something we need to see, accept, or transform. Write the word awaken in the comments to activate your healing and transformation energy while watching this video. This conscious intention will amplify your process of self-knowledge. 1. The unconscious magnet. There is a force operating within you that does not ask permission to act. It works behind the scenes of your consciousness, choosing for you before your rational mind can even interfere. When you feel that instantaneous, inexplicable attraction to a distant, cold, or emotionally absent man, it's not your heart talking. It is something much deeper and older. Jung called this the unconscious, a dimension of the psyche where memories, traumas, and patterns that you don't even know you carry live. This hidden territory functions as a long-programmed emotional GPS, guiding your love choices to destinations that feel familiar, even when they are destructive. The point is that this GPS was set up in your childhood, in the first years of life when you were learning what love, safety, and connection are. If in that period you experienced coldness, emotional absence, or neglect, your internal system registered it as normal. Your unconscious has created a map saying that love is exactly that: distant, unpredictable, difficult to achieve. So when you grow up and start relating, your emotional radar looks for what's familiar, not what's healthy. You're not consciously picking out unavailable men. You're being guided by an internal program that says that kind of person is what you know, what makes sense, what feels right. This mechanism is powerful because it operates in silence. You may even think that you are making free decisions, that you are choosing based on chemistry or compatibility. But the truth is that your unconscious has already filtered all the options before you realize it. Emotionally available, affectionate, and present men don't trigger the same sign of recognition. They look weird, boring, or dull because they don't activate that old pattern. There's no tension, drama, or the feeling of fighting over something. And because your system has been trained to associate love with effort and suffering, genuine presence feels wrong. Jung taught that everything that is in the unconscious eventually manifests itself in external reality. Your relationships are the living projection of what you have not resolved internally. Each unavailable man is a messenger bringing the same lesson: look within. As long as you do not recognize this invisible magnet operating in you, you will continue to attract the same experiences with different faces. Change only begins when you bring light into that inner darkness. When you finally see that you are not choosing freely, you're obeying a script written a long time ago, and now you have the chance to rewrite that history. Or 2. Patterns you inherited. You weren't born with the beliefs you have about love. They have been passed down to you as an invisible inheritance, passed down through generations without anyone speaking a word about it. Jung discovered that we carry not only our own experiences, but also the emotional experiences of the people who came before us. Her grandmother who accepted a cold marriage. Your mother has normalized your father's emotional absence. These stories are not in the past. They entered his psyche as instructions on how women in his lineage relate to men. When you look at the history of the women in your family, can you identify any patterns? Did they love present and devoted men? Or did they settle for crumbs? Did they demand emotional reciprocity? Or did they learn to survive in effective scarcity? The answers to these questions reveal a lot about why you are where you are now. You may be living a script that is not yours, repeating choices that other women have made before you, believing that this is the only way to love because it was the only way you saw. These inherited patterns are insidious because they feel natural. You grow up watching your mother chase after an emotionally absent man, and it becomes your relationship model. You learn that women wait, that women tolerate, that women sacrifice themselves while men are absent. No one needs to say that out loud. You absorb it by what you see, by what you feel in the air of the house, by the silent sadness that your mother carries in her eyes. And when you become an adult, you replicate all of this without even realizing it. Your unconscious already knows exactly how this game works because it has watched the entire play for years. Jung was talking about the collective unconscious, an even deeper layer where all of humanity shares symbols and experiences. But before that, there is the family unconscious, the set of beliefs and traumas that your specific family carries. If the women in your family have learned that men don't hook up, don't give in, don't really love, this belief is inside you too. It works like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect men to be unavailable, so you look for proof of that in every relationship. And when she finds it, she confirms that she was right all along. Breaking these patterns requires you to become aware of them first. You need to look honestly at the history of the women who came before you and decide what you will continue to carry and what you will leave behind. It's not about blaming your mom or your grandma. It's about acknowledging that they did the best they could with what they knew. But now you have a different opportunity. You may be the first in the lineage to choose differently, to demand more, to accept no less than true emotional presence. And when you do that, you heal not only yourself, but all those who have come before. When you attract unavailable men, it's never about them. It's a mirror of what still needs healing within you. If you're ready to understand this pattern and finally break it, watch the free guide inside the Jung Method. Link pinned in the first comment. Asiankai Dikengi 3, The Illusion of Rescue. There is a powerful fantasy that fuels her attraction to unavailable men. It's the idea that you can be the special person who will finally melt his ice, who will achieve what no other person has achieved. You look at that closed man and see a project, a potential, a future version of him that only you can see. This illusion is seductive because it turns the relationship into a heroic mission where you are the savior, the only one capable of bringing light to his darkness. Jung would say that you are projecting qualities onto him that are not really there, creating an idealized image that exists only in your imagination. This fantasy has deep roots. Maybe you grew up trying to win the love of an estranged father, believing that if you were good enough, obedient enough, perfect enough, he would finally see you. That impossible mission of childhood is now repeated in your adult relationships. You choose men who need to be conquered, convinced, transformed, because that activates that old hope that this time you will succeed. If you can get this man to open up, it will be the ultimate proof that you are worthy of love, that you have value. The problem is that while you're busy trying to save it, you're getting lost. All your energy goes into deciphering his moods, to finding ways to get closer without scaring him, to prove your worth through infinite patience. You become small, adaptable, always adjusting your needs to fit the limited emotional space it offers. And the more you try, the more distant he becomes, because emotionally unavailable men move away from those who try to get too close. They need distance to feel safe, and the more you invade that space, the more they retreat. Jung taught that when we project qualities onto someone that we want to see, we are escaping from reality. You're not loving the real man in front of you. You're loving the imaginary version that he could be if he changed, healed, opened up. But that person doesn't exist. It is your creation, a projection of your needs and fantasies. And while you pursue this illusion, the real man remains exactly as he always was, unavailable, closed, distant. He didn't ask to be her healing project. He's showing you who he is through his actions, but you refuse to believe it because fantasy is more appealing than reality. The hard truth is that you can't save anyone. Each person has their own journey, their own wounds to heal, and it can't be done by someone else, no matter how much you love or dedicate yourself. When you finally let go of the fantasy of rescue, when you accept that that man is who he chooses to be now, you free yourself. You stop wasting your energy trying to change someone and start using it to build a life where you don't have to beg for emotional presence. The real mission is not to save him. It is saving yourself from this illusion that has been holding you back. 4. Your emotional emptiness. Before any man comes into your life, there is already an empty space inside you. It's an old lack, an emotional hole that formed at some point when you needed something and didn't receive it. Maybe it was affection, validation, attention, or simply the feeling of being important to someone. This emptiness settled in her psyche, and since then it has commanded her love choices. Jung explained that the greater the inner emptiness, the greater the need to fill that space with something external. And that's where emotionally unavailable men come into your story. The dynamic is cruel but predictable. You feel incomplete, so you look for someone who can make you feel whole. But unconsciously, you choose exactly the kind of person who can't give you what you need. Why? Because if you chose someone who was available, present, and emotionally generous, your emptiness would be exposed. You would have to confront the fact that not even healthy love fills that hole, because it needs to be healed from the inside out. So you choose men who keep you busy, fighting, suffering, waiting. The pain of this impossible search distracts you from the deeper pain of facing your own emptiness. This emptiness creates a desperate emotional hunger. You become needy, not because you're weak, but because you're trying to make up for years of emotional neglect. Any crumb of affection this unavailable man offers feels like a feast because you're hungry. A text after days of silence. A rare moment of vulnerability. A kind word in the midst of so much coldness. These little things take on enormous weight because you're operating in scarcity mode. And the scarcer the emotional offer, the more you value anything you receive, even if it's next to nothing. Jung said that we need to become whole by ourselves before we can truly unite with another person. As long as you are carrying this emptiness, you will continue to search outside for what can only be found within. This doesn't mean you need to be perfect or completely healed to relate. It means that you need to take responsibility for your own emotional fulfillment. You need to learn to give yourself what you have been begging others to give you: attention, care, validation, presence. When you start nurturing yourself, something interesting happens. You stop tolerating crumbs because you now know what it feels like to be emotionally fed. A distant man no longer seems attractive or challenging. He simply looks impoverished, unable to offer what you now know you deserve. The inner emptiness begins to close not because someone has come to fill it, but because you have taken on the task of healing yourself. And when you're full of yourself, in a good way, unavailable men completely lose their appeal. They have nothing to offer to someone who is no longer empty. 5. The ghost man. He is there, but he is not. Responds, but does not connect. It appears but disappears without warning. This kind of man is like a ghost in your life. You feel his presence, but you can't really touch him, hold him, build something solid with him. Jung would describe this figure as a shadow, someone who inhabits the edges of his reality without ever fully entering. And the most disturbing thing is that you get used to it. You start to accept this half-presence as if it were enough, as if relationships were made to be lived in this penumbra between being together and being alone. This ghostly behavior creates devastating mental confusion. You never know where you're stepping. One day he is present, affectionate, making plans, talking about the future. The next day, he disappeared. You are analyzing every word, every gesture, trying to understand what has changed, what you have done wrong. But the truth is, you didn't do anything. He simply has no ability to stay. Your emotional structure can't handle prolonged closeness. Then it comes and goes, leaving you in a constant state of anxiety, always waiting, always trying to predict when it will appear or disappear again. This dynamic keeps you stuck in a vicious cycle. In the moments when he is present, you feel relief, happiness, hope. You think that you finally succeeded, that it has changed, that now it will be different. But then he pulls away again, and you fall apart, questioning everything, blaming yourself, trying to figure out how to bring him back. This emotional roller coaster is addictive because the high moments feel so good after the low ones feel so bad. Your brain releases intense doses of dopamine when it returns, creating an intermittent reward pattern that is neurologically more addictive than any drug. Jung would say that you are relating to an archetype, not a real person. This man has become a symbol in your psyche, representing something that you are trying to solve internally. Perhaps he represents the father who went back and forth, never really trustworthy. Or maybe it symbolizes your own inability to be fully present to yourself, your tendency to abandon yourself emotionally. Whatever it represents, you're dancing with a shadow, not building a real relationship. The way out of this emotional prison begins when you recognize that partial presence is not presence. Someone who disappears repeatedly is telling you, through actions, that they can't be in a real relationship. It doesn't matter the excuses, the explanations, the promises when he returns. The default is the message. And the faster you accept this truth, the faster you can break free from this exhausting persecution of someone who will never stay. You deserve someone who doesn't disappear, someone whose presence is constant, real, palpable, not a ghost that you have to conjure up over and over again through hope and suffering. Gag 6, you choose the distance. Here's a truth that hurts but liberates. You're not a victim of these situations. On some deep level, you are choosing emotionally distant men because distance serves a purpose in your own psyche. Jung taught that nothing happens to us, everything happens through us. This means that your attraction to unavailable men is not bad luck or coincidence. It's an unconscious choice that protects you from something that scares you even more than loneliness: true intimacy. Real intimacy is terrifying for those who grew up in emotionally insecure environments. When someone actually sees you, when someone wants to know your deepest layers, when someone offers constant presence and mutual vulnerability, something inside you panics. Because intimacy means being known, and being known means running the risk of being rejected for the person you really are, not for the edited version you present to the world. So unconsciously, you choose men who will never get close enough to really get to know you. Their emotional distance protects you from your own vulnerability. There is also another disturbing element in this equation. Maybe you're afraid of your own power. When you are with an emotionally available man, you need to show yourself whole. You need to occupy your space. You need to be reciprocal. This requires a mature and responsible version of you that you may not feel ready to be. With an unavailable man, you can remain in the role of the persecutor, of the one who suffers, of the one who waits. This role is familiar and, in a way, comfortable. You don't need to grow. You don't need to take responsibility for your part in building something real. You can continue to blame him for the dysfunction, avoiding looking at your own limitations. Jung talked about the personal shadow, the parts of us that we deny or reject. Part of your shadow may include your own difficulty with commitment, your own inability to surrender, your own fears of entrapment or loss of freedom. By choosing men who can't commit, you don't have to confront your own ambivalences about relationships. You project all the emotional incapacity onto him, maintaining the image that you are ready and he is not. But are you really? Taking on this responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. When you recognize that you're choosing distance, that you're using those relationships to avoid true intimacy, you can finally make different choices. You can start working on your own fears of closeness, your own wounds that make healthy love seem scary. And when you heal those parts, when you become able to tolerate real intimacy, distant men automatically lose their appeal. You no longer need them to keep your distance safe. You're ready to get really closer. Gary 7, breaking the cycle. Recognizing the pattern is only the first step. Now comes the hardest part, breaking with him in fact. Jung said that consciousness is the first step to transformation, but consciousness alone is not enough. You need deliberate action, conscious choices that contradict your automatic impulses. This means that even when your whole body is screaming to run after that distant man, you need to do the exact opposite. You need to stand still, take a deep breath, and let the anxiety pass without reacting to it. Breaking this cycle requires you to develop a completely new relationship with discomfort. Its old pattern was comfortable not because it was good, but because it was familiar. Change, even for the better, will make you feel awkward, anxious, as if something is wrong. When you start setting boundaries, when you walk away from men who don't offer you real presence, your nervous system will go on alert. You will feel like going back to what you know. But you need to go through this discomfort without giving in. On the other side of this crossing is your freedom. A powerful tool in this process is to start paying attention to your bodily sensations. Your body knows the truth before your mind rationalizes it. When you're with someone who is emotionally unavailable, there's a constant tension in your body, a tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, a sense of always being on the alert, waiting for the next disappointment. Compare this to how you feel next to someone genuinely present. There is relaxation, deeper breathing, a sense of security. Start using your body as a compass. If you are constantly tense, anxious, in survival mode, this is a sign that something is wrong. Another essential practice is to stop idealizing suffering. Our culture romanticizes the idea of love as struggle, as sacrifice, as pain. Songs, movies, books all celebrate this narrative that true love is difficult, complicated, dramatic. But Jung understood that mature love is actually quite simple. It is presence, respect, reciprocity, consistency. It's not about drama or intensity. It's about daily building trust and intimacy. When you stop associating suffering with love, when you realize that healthy relationships aren't boring, they're peaceful, you start craving different things. Finally, you need patience with yourself. This pattern took years to form. It won't disappear overnight. You will relapse. She will find herself attracted to another unavailable man. You'll want to send that message, make that call, give it one more chance. But each time you recognize the pattern and choose differently, you're rewriting your internal programming. It's creating new neural pathways. It is teaching your unconscious that there is another way to love, another way to relate, another way to exist in the world. Attracting real presence. When you finally heal the wounds that made you seek out unavailable men, something remarkable happens. You start to attract a completely different kind of person. Not because the universe has changed, but because you have changed. Their emotional frequency has changed. You are no longer emitting that signal of lack, that energy of save me or prove your love through suffering. Now you radiate something new. Self-sufficiency, healthy boundaries, clear expectations. And it repels emotionally immature men while attracting those who are ready for something real. Jung believed in the concept of synchronicity, the idea that our external reality reflects our internal state. When you are fragmented internally, full of unhealed wounds and unmet needs, you attract equally fragmented people. But when you become whole, when you make peace with your past and take responsibility for your present, you start magnetizing whole people as well. This is not magic, it's basic psychology. You can only recognize in others what you have developed in yourself. If you don't have an emotional presence with yourself, you won't recognize or value that quality in another person. Transformation begins when you stop seeing relationships as salvation and start seeing them as expansion. You don't need someone to complete yourself because you're already complete. You want someone to share that completeness, to add to co-create a life that is greater than any of you could build on your own. This change in perspective changes everything. You stop tolerating crumbs because you are not hungry. You stop chasing because you are not desperate. You stop settling for less because you know your own worth. Emotionally available men are not perfect. They have their own wounds, their own healing journeys. The difference is that they are aware of it and are actively working on themselves. They don't use you as an emotional therapist or as an audience for their unresolved dramas. They appear, they communicate, they are consistent. And yes, at first this may seem strange, boring even. You may miss that chaotic intensity, that emotional roller coaster. But with time, you learn to appreciate peace. You discover that stability is not boredom, it is security. And security is the soil where real love can finally grow. The journey so far has not been easy. It required you to look at the darkest parts of yourself, to take responsibility for painful patterns, to let go of toxic relationships even when everything in you wanted to hold on to. But now you're on the other side. You broke the cycle that kept you stuck. You healed the wounds that made you look for love in empty places. And now finally you're ready to attract and recognize real presence. Not because you need it to survive, but because you deserve it. And this difference, this subtle but profound change, changes absolutely everything. You're no longer chasing love. You've become the kind of person that true love naturally seeks out.